The first time I saw him, I thought I was dreaming. I'd just taken the night shift at a security desk for one of those sleek downtown tech companies. The kind with standing desks, glass everything, and a neon sign in the lobby that said something like, "Move fast, break everything." My job? Sit at the front, watch monitors, buzz people in, repeat. It paid just enough to not be humiliating. Most nights were dead. I mean dead. No one in or out past 9. The cleaners left by midnight. I had 3 monitors, 2 podcasts on rotation, and a sad vending machine for company. Until he started showing up. It was around 2:15 a.m. the first time. I remember because I was halfway through microwaving a gas station burrito and debating if I should risk eating it when the elevator dinged. The doors slid open, and there he was, Caleb Maddox, CEO of the company. He wasn't supposed to be there. I'd only seen his photo once in the employee orientation binder. Black suit, sharp jaw, piercing eyes. Real, if Batman worked in fintech energy. In real life, he was somehow even more intimidating. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in all black, not a hair out of place. I stood up instinctively. Mr. Maddox? He barely looked at me, just nodded once, like I was a hotel bellhop, and walked past toward the elevators to the executive floor. No explanation, no bags, no laptop, no assistant. He didn't come back down for over an hour. After that, it became a pattern. Every few nights, sometimes at 1 o'clock, sometimes closer to 3 o'clock, Caleb would appear out of nowhere, never said much, never brought anything. He'd come in, disappear upstairs, and leave before dawn. At first, I thought maybe he was having an affair with someone on the exec team, or maybe he just liked working late, but something about it felt off. There was an intensity in the way he moved, like he was on a mission. But one night, everything shifted. It was a Tuesday. Quiet, rain tapping the glass windows. I was reading a paperback, trying not to doze off when I heard the elevator. I looked up, already knowing it would be him. Only this time, he didn't walk past me. He stopped. "You always sit like that?" he asked. I blinked, thrown. "Like what?" He nodded toward me. "Feet up, leaning back like you own the place." I straightened immediately. "Sorry, sir." He studied me for a second, then smirked. "Relax, it's not a complaint." Then he walked over to the desk, leaned one hand on the edge. "You're Eli, right?" I nodded. "Yeah. Just started a few weeks ago." "I know," he said. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes, a kind of wornness that didn't match the polished suit. He wasn't wearing a coat, despite the rain. His shirt was damp at the shoulders. "Do you like working nights?" he asked. "I guess," I said. "It's quiet. No one really bothers me." He looked at me for a moment, like he was deciding something, then said, "Good." And that was it. He turned and walked away. The elevator swallowed him, like always. But after that night, things started changing. He started talking to me. Short questions, mostly. Asked if I drank coffee, if I was in school, if I liked the job. And sometimes, he'd just stand at the front desk, silent, looking out the glass doors like he was watching for something. He never stayed long, but each time the conversation stretched a little further, and I started looking forward to them. There was something in his voice, in the way he spoke, calm, deep, deliberate. He had this presence, like even in silence he filled the room. And when he looked at me, it wasn't casual, it wasn't meaningless. It felt like he saw me. Which was insane, right? He was the CEO. I was the guy who made sure the door stayed locked after hours. But the way he leaned in when he spoke to me, the way his eyes lingered just a beat too long, it made me wonder if I was imagining things, or if something real was starting to stir in the quiet between 2 and 4 a.m. The fourth time Caleb stopped to talk to me, I noticed something new. He was wearing sneakers, not the usual black dress shoes he always had on. Tonight, it was black joggers, a hoodie, and a pair of all-white Nikes. It threw me off. He looked younger. Less CEO, more guy who jogs at midnight and knows where to get the best coffee in town. I did my best to look unfazed, but inside I was scrambling. Was this still part of his strange after-hours routine, or was something else going on? He walked in, hands in his pockets, hoodie slightly damp from the rain, nodded at me like usual. Slow night? Always, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Caleb walked over to the counter and leaned against it like we were regulars at a diner. His hair was wet at the edges. For the first time, I noticed a small scar on his eyebrow. Just a sliver, like something he got as a kid and never bothered to cover up. "You look bored out of your mind," he said, glancing at the paperback on my desk. "Trying to make it through another Stephen King. This one's all build-up, no ghosts yet." He gave a small smile. "You like horror?" "I like tension," I said. "Horror, thrillers, mysteries, anything where someone's watching and you don't know why." He raised an eyebrow. "Sounds familiar." That stopped me. Was he talking about me? Him? Us? He didn't elaborate, just pushed off the desk and walked toward the elevator again. But this time, he paused at the button and looked back. "You want a coffee?" I blinked. "What?" "I was gonna grab one from the diner down the block. They're still open. Thought I'd bring one back." "Black, right?" "How do you... You always smell like burnt beans and regret by 3 a.m. Figured it was vending machine sludge." I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Yeah, okay. Black, no sugar." He disappeared out the door, and I sat there, stunned. Caleb Maddox, multi-millionaire CEO, just asked if I wanted coffee. 15 minutes later, he came back holding 2 white paper cups, one of which he handed to me without a word. He sat on the edge of the security desk like it was no big deal, sipping from his cup like this was his Tuesday night routine. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the monitors. Eventually, he asked, "Why'd you take this job?" I shrugged. Lost the last one. Needed something to keep me afloat. It was this, or bartending. You don't look like a bartender. And you don't look like someone who hangs around his office at 2 a.m. I shot back. He smiled again, just faintly. "Touché." I sipped the coffee. It was decent. Real coffee. Hot, strong, way better than the bitter sludge I usually drank to stay awake. "You don't sleep?" I asked. Caleb looked toward the front doors, like something might be waiting outside. "Some nights I don't want to." That answer sat heavy in the air. Then he asked, "You ever get the feeling you're meant to be somewhere else, but you're stuck?" I looked at him, unsure how to answer. "Yeah," I said eventually. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just waiting for something to change, but I don't know what." He nodded slowly, like he understood that too well. We sat there like that, 2 strangers in the middle of the night, trading silence like it meant something. The city outside was quiet, the rain still falling in soft patterns against the glass. And in that moment, it didn't feel like I was just the night guard anymore. It felt like something was shifting. Something unspoken. And it started with coffee. The next few nights, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It wasn't just the coffee. It was the way Caleb talked. How he didn't treat me like I was invisible, like most higher-ups did. And how he lingered in the quiet like he needed it more than I did. I kept telling myself not to read into it. I was just the guy at the front desk. He was the CEO. We existed in 2 different worlds that happened to overlap at 2:30 in the morning. That's it. But then Thursday came. I had just settled in with a new book, my feet tucked under the desk, when the doors hissed open and Caleb walked in. No hoodie this time. Back to the suit. But the tie was loosened, and he looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. His jaw was tense. His hands were in his pockets. He walked straight to the desk. "No coffee tonight?" I joked, trying to keep it light. He shook his head. "Didn't feel like walking." I nodded slowly. "You all right?" He hesitated, just enough for me to notice. "Yeah, just one of those days where everyone wants something from you, and no one gives a damn about the cost." He ran a hand through his hair and exhaled hard. I'd never seen him like this. Vulnerable. Human. "You want to talk about it?" I asked, half expecting him to brush it off. Instead, he leaned against the counter and looked at me, eyes steady. You're easy to talk to. That did something to my chest. I swallowed it down. I've had a rough week too, I offered. Some guy on the second floor keeps microwaving fish at midnight. Caleb laughed, actually laughed, and I realized it was the first time I'd seen anything resembling joy on his face. I can fire him if you want. You'd fire a guy over salmon? He grinned. I've fired people for less. That grin. Fuck. Before I could respond, he said, You want to see the rooftop? I blinked. The rooftop? He nodded toward the elevators. Best view in the city. No one's up there this late. I mean, I'm not really supposed to leave the desk. I'll cover for you, he said, smirking. Tempting, I said, heart thudding. He watched me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Offers open. I looked around. Empty lobby, silent monitors, the stillness of 3 a.m. pressing in from all sides. Screw it. I stood and grabbed my badge. The elevator ride was quiet. We didn't look at each other. Didn't need to. When the doors opened, we stepped into a narrow hallway that led to a glass door. Caleb unlocked it with a keycard from his pocket, and the cold night air hit us instantly. The rooftop was wide and bare, bordered with glass panels instead of railings. The skyline spread out in every direction, lights stretching all the way to the bay. The rain had stopped, but the air was damp, and the city looked like it had just exhaled. Damn, I muttered. Told you, Caleb said. We stood there in silence. The wind tugged at my jacket. He was close, maybe a foot away, but somehow it felt like no space at all. I come up here to remind myself I'm still a person, he said quietly, that I'm not just a job. I glanced at him. He was staring out at the city like he was waiting for it to give him something back. Do you always bring your employees up here? I asked. He turned to me slowly, something flickering behind his eyes. No. The wind picked up. A siren wailed in the distance. The lights of a ferry blinked far off in the dark. I should have said something. Stepped back. Laughed it off. Instead, I just stood there, looking at him, feeling the pull. And for the first time, he didn't look away. We didn't talk much on the way back down. The elevator hummed beneath our feet, a low, vibrating sound that filled the silence between us. I kept sneaking glances at him, in the reflection on the elevator door. How calm he looked, how unreadable. Like nothing had just happened. But something had happened. It wasn't anything physical, not really. No touch, no obvious flirtation, just tension. The kind that sits between two people and dares one of them to acknowledge it first. By the time we reached the lobby, I was already second-guessing everything. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe he was just being nice. CEOs probably have that practiced charisma thing down to a science. But then, before I could slip behind the desk again, Caleb paused and said, You're not like the others. I frowned. Others? He shrugged one shoulder, loosening his tie a little. People who work here. People I talk to. It's all transactional. You don't ask me for anything. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything. He gave me one last look before disappearing into the elevator again. And this time, he didn't go upstairs. He left the building. I sat there the rest of the night, staring at the monitors, barely registering anything. After that rooftop night, things changed. I didn't see Caleb for almost a week. And that absence, it gnawed at me more than I wanted to admit. I told myself I didn't care. That he probably got busy, or went on a trip, or maybe realized how weird it was to spend so much time talking to the night guy. But every time the elevator chimed, my chest would tighten. Every time it wasn't him, I felt that slow, stupid disappointment. Then, a week later, he came back. Same black hoodie, same midnight hour. But this time, he brought whiskey. He walked in holding 2 paper cups, one of them already halfway empty, and that same tired look in his eyes. I shouldn't be doing this, he said, handing me the second cup like we were old friends instead of whatever we were. Whiskey in the lobby? That's gotta violate at least 3 HR rules. He smirked. HR doesn't work nights? I took a sip. It was decent. Warm. A little too smooth for something poured into a coffee cup. We didn't go to the rooftop this time. We just sat there at the desk, sipping quietly, the monitors glowing in front of us. Rough night? I asked. Rough life, he muttered. For a second, I thought he was going to say more. Instead, he leaned forward and asked, Do you ever get tired of pretending? I blinked. Pretending what? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt like the air between us dropped 10 degrees. Pretending you're okay, that this is enough, that you're fine where you are. That hit too close. I didn't answer. He leaned back, looking away. Sorry, I've had a few. I set my cup down. Don't apologize for being honest. We sat there a little longer. The whiskey took the edge off everything. The lights, the silence, the way he kept glancing over at me when he thought I wasn't looking. At some point, he said, I shouldn't come here. But he didn't leave, and neither did I. At 4:07 a.m., just before my shift ended, he stood up, straightened his hoodie, finished his drink. See you around, he said softly, heading for the exit. And then he stopped, turned back. You ever want to leave this desk for a night? Just say the word. Then he was gone again, and I was left wondering what exactly he meant by that. The next time I saw Caleb, I said the word. It had been 4 days. Long, quiet, boring nights where I couldn't stop replaying what he said. You ever want to leave this desk? Like it was an invitation, like we were circling something real, and he was finally opening the door. So when he showed up that Thursday, black jeans, a simple tee, hair slightly messy like he'd just rolled out of bed, I didn't hesitate. You said I could say the word. He didn't play dumb, just tilted his head a little and asked, You ready? I locked the desk without another word. We didn't take the elevator this time. We walked out the front doors together, the cold air hitting my skin like a slap. He led me around the building and into a sleek black car waiting at the curb. No driver. Of course he drove himself. The inside smelled like leather and cedar. Clean. Quiet. We didn't talk on the ride. Wherever we were going, it wasn't far. 10 minutes later, we pulled into an underground garage, and I followed him into a private elevator that went straight up to what I guessed was a penthouse. The doors opened into a space that looked like a magazine spread. Dark wood floors, massive windows overlooking the skyline, open concept everything. But nothing felt cold. It was lived in. Quiet music played from somewhere. The lights were low, and suddenly, the silence between us was a whole different kind of heavy. He walked to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of something that wasn't whiskey this time. Scotch, he said. Hope that's okay. I took the glass. Anything that isn't from a vending machine is okay. He laughed softly and leaned against the counter. We stood there, a few feet apart, sipping in silence. You don't talk much, he finally said. You like that, don't you? His mouth twitched like he was trying not to smile. Yeah, I do. I sat on the edge of his kitchen island, watching him. He looked different in this light. Softer somehow, less invincible, the kind of tired you don't fix with sleep. Do you bring a lot of night guards up here? I asked. He looked at me for a long second. Just one. Something about the way he said it. I felt it in my chest. He pushed off the counter and walked over to the windows. I followed, standing next to him as we looked out at the city, the lights blinking across the skyline like static. I used to think power would fix everything, he said. Like once I made it, once I had the title, the money, the influence, I'd finally be happy. And I'm still waiting. His voice was quiet, but every word landed like a weight. I think, I said slowly, you keep showing up at the office at 2 a.m. because you're hoping someone will see you when you don't want to be seen. He turned to me. His eyes, God, those eyes were searching. Careful, like he was still testing me. But I didn't look away. Eli, he said my name like he wasn't sure what came after it. So I closed the space between us. Not all of it, just enough. I'm here, I said. You don't have to keep pretending with me. He didn't say anything, but the way his eyes dropped to my mouth, the way his breath caught, I knew. Then, slowly, carefully, he leaned in. and kissed me. It wasn't hard or fast or desperate. It was quiet, intentional, like he wanted to know what I tasted like he'd been waiting. And fuck, I kissed him back. There, in the dark, in the penthouse above a city that never really sleeps, I kissed my boss, my CEO. And I didn't want to stop. We didn't rush it. After that first kiss, Caleb just stood there, forehead resting against mine like he needed a second to breathe. His hands were light on my sides, not pulling, not pushing, just there. Present, real. I wasn't planning for this, he said quietly. Neither was I. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. You're not what I expected. Because I'm a security guard? No, he said, his voice firm, because you don't want anything from me. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I did want something. I just didn't know what the hell it was yet. But he kissed me again before I could figure it out. This time, deeper, slower. Like he'd made a decision, we made our way to the couch, still kissing in that careful, exploring kind of way. His fingers slid under my shirt, slow at first, testing the waters. I let him. I wanted to feel him. His skin was warm. His touch was deliberate. When I slid my own hand up the back of his neck, his whole body exhaled against mine, like he'd been holding tension for years. And then the clothes started coming off. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't a quick, sweaty action. It was unwrapping, like we were unlearning how we were supposed to touch each other. CEO and employee, night guard and billionaire. All of that fell away. Just hands and mouths and the soft sound of breathing in between. He moved like someone who needed control, but who also needed to give it up. And when he let his weight rest on top of me, forehead on my chest, I knew this wasn't just chillin'. Not for him, not for me. We stayed there for a long time. Bare skin tangled together on his oversized couch, the skyline flickering through the windows behind him. His hand rested on my hip, mine on his back. Neither of us spoke. Eventually I felt him shift, just slightly. Then he said, "Do you regret coming up here?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "No, but I think you might." He sat up, tension returning like a wave. "It's not that I regret it. It's just..." He rubbed his face. "You have no idea how complicated this is for me." "You mean because you're my boss?" "No," he said. "Because I've built an entire life on being in control. This," he gestured between us, "wasn't part of the plan." I sat up beside him, still half draped in a throw blanket. "Yeah, well, most good things aren't." He looked at me again. That unreadable look. The one I was starting to understand wasn't coldness. It was hesitation. Fear, maybe. "You're scared," I said. He didn't deny it. "Not of me," I added. "Just of what it means to want someone like me." There it was. His walls cracked for just a second. I've spent so long making sure no one gets too close. I don't even know how to want someone the right way. "Then don't do it the right way," I said. "Just do it honestly." His breath hitched at that. We stayed like that until the city started to pale with dawn. He offered to drive me back to the office before the morning shift came in. I declined, said I'd take the bus. I needed the air. We didn't kiss again before I left. He just watched me go, but I knew I'd see him again. And I knew it wasn't over, not even close. I didn't see him for 3 days. No texts. No late night visits. Just silence. I told myself not to overthink it, that maybe he was giving me space. Or himself. But when you kiss your boss in his penthouse and wake up to radio silence, it's hard not to take it personally. Still, I showed up to work like nothing happened. Watched the monitors. Drank my coffee. Waited. On the 4th night, he walked in at 1:17 a.m. like nothing had changed. Except everything had. He looked tired, more than usual, but polished. He always was. A navy blue coat, sharp dress shoes, and an expression that gave nothing away. "Hey," he said, stepping up to the desk. "Hey." I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, like he was searching for the right way to start. Finally, he said, "Can we talk?" I nodded. "Yeah." He motioned toward the side hallway near the elevators. Not the rooftop. Not the penthouse. Just a quiet corner of the building where we wouldn't be overheard. I followed. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, head down like he was bracing for impact. "I don't do this," he said. "Be with someone?" "No. I mean, yeah, that too. But I don't let people in. You know that." I stayed quiet. "Let him get it out." He looked up at me. "You make it hard not to." That hit harder than I expected. "Then why disappear?" I asked. He looked down at the floor again. "Because it scared the shit out of me. Because you make me want things I don't know how to handle. Because I don't know what this is supposed to be." "I don't either," I said, "but I know what it feels like." He stepped a little closer. "And what's that? Like I'm not just some name on your security log." He smiled, tired and soft. "You're not." There was a long pause. "I can't promise this will be easy," he said. "I'm not wired for normal. My life's complicated, messy." "Mine too," I cut in. "I might pull away again. I might mess it up." I took a step toward him. "Then let me pull you back." He stared at me like he wasn't used to being forgiven before he even made the mistake. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing," he said, voice low. "Then don't let it be." That was it. He leaned in, kissed me again, this time with something deeper in it. Not just want. Not just release. But intent. It didn't matter if we were in a side hallway of a corporate skyscraper. It didn't matter that the fluorescents buzzed slightly or that the floor smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant. All that mattered was that he kissed me like he meant it. And I kissed him back like I was sure. Because for the first time, I was. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine and said, "Come back to my place. Not for close. Not just that. Just be there." I nodded. "Okay." He pulled out his phone and texted someone. "You're off duty for the night. I'll pay the overtime." I smirked. "Power has its perks," he grinned. "Let's go." This time, I didn't hesitate. We walked out of the building together, like we weren't hiding. And for once, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. His place felt different that night. Less like a fortress, more like a home. The lights were low again, warm and golden, and the music was softer this time. Something ambient, barely there, just enough to fill the quiet. Caleb tossed his keys on the counter and looked at me like he was still working up the nerve to believe this was real. "Want something to drink?" he asked. "Just water," I said, trying to remember I'm still technically on the clock for 5 more hours. He grabbed 2 glasses, filled them from the fridge filter, and handed me one. We stood at the island like we had the first time, like we hadn't already kissed, undressed each other, and shared a night on this very couch. But the tension was different now. No more holding back. No more pretending it didn't mean anything. "I've had something," Caleb said, eyes on the rim of his glass. "Casual things. But this... it's not that." I nodded slowly, not wanting to rush him. He glanced up. "You scare me." I smiled gently. "I get that a lot." He laughed. Really laughed this time, and it cut through whatever weight he'd been carrying. We didn't rush into bed. We sat on the couch, legs touching, his head eventually resting on my shoulder, as we talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies. Music. What he used to want before the company consumed him. What I was still trying to figure out. At one point he said, "I don't know how this works. I don't know what I'm doing." And I said, "Then we'll figure it out together." That's all he needed. We didn't sleep together that night. Not in the way we already had. We fell asleep, tangled in each other, fully clothed, under a throw blanket that was too small for us both. His hand rested on my chest. My arm was draped over his waist. It was messy, imperfect, real. When I woke up, sunlight was bleeding through the windows, and he was still asleep beside me, breathing slow and even. I could have gotten up, Slipped out quietly. Left it at that. But I didn't want to. So I stayed. Eventually he stirred. Eyes half-lidded, voice rough. You stayed. I said I would. He pulled me closer like he didn't want to waste a second. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the difference in our jobs. Not the imbalance of our lives. Not the weirdness of how it all started. It wasn't about roles or titles or routines anymore. It was about the quiet that happened between 2 and 4 a.m. The silence that only we shared. The rooftop moments and paper coffee cups. The way he let me see the version of him no one else got. I was just a night guard when this started. But now I was something more. And so was he.